Shut my
Morning.
windows down. I'm ready now.
Hey guys, how are you doing today?
Good morning.
Outstanding. What's up, Robin? What are we talking about today?
Well, I feel like 529 and uplands have really been on our mind lately, so I felt like we should dig more into that.
Yeah, I agree. Yep, I've been working a lot with the 529 plans and with 3 kids and all the different options. I felt like, Joe,
Yeah, we talked about these
teach us
for
a little
last
bit.
year for like for combined 6 kids that are on this call, doing that.
Right.
All of age too.
What's the best plan of action for these little people?
I mean, so when we talk about 529s, I think the first thing that always pops into my mind is like, what state are we talking about? Like where the person lives? Because 529s is one of the quirky things where there's state benefits and there's federal benefits.
Right.
So, Julie, you and your husband live in Maryland, right?
We do. Yep, we do.
3 kids, right?
3 kids. Yep.
So Maryland offers a tax deduction of $2,500 per contributor per beneficiary.
Okay.
So many households have 2 parents in the household. That would be $5,000 per kid if the 2 parents are filing a joint tax return. So sort of an easy way of thinking of it is $5,000 per kid. Even better though, the tax deduction in Maryland is not limited to the parents. So I could contribute to your son Mikey's 529 and I can get a deduction on that contribution.
Oh,
Okay.
So that's really cool for like friends or most commonly grandparents, I would say,
Right.
if they live in Maryland. Aunts, uncles, those type of things who are already like giving you baptism gifts or birthdays or whatever the holidays that come up. Julie, how much plastic stuff do you have in your house?
I know, that's what I was just thinking. Like, I mean, it's so nice to get like, the nice piece of junk, but that, yes, we have a lot of it. So, if they can contribute to, the plan, I know that the kids aren't going to be happy about it, but down the road they will be.
well, they'll be happy when they're going to college. And that
Exactly. And so will mom.
Yeah, and Robin's right. So college is most commonly thought of used for, but it also can be used for K through 12. So my
Okay.
kids are in Catholic schools, so it could be used for K through 12 education. Also some unique cases that I've had to look over the years. Yoga school worked. A guy had me look at it for golf school. Golf school worked. And then this wasn't like my client, but it was a friend of a client who took the funds, went to Italy and went to cooking school in Italy, used the 529 funds for that.
That is amazing.
Wow.
That was probably an experience.
Robin's interested now.
Yeah, Joe, curious when you say using it for different things. So like what if your child gets a scholarship and you don't necessarily need those funds? Is there a way to like transfer it to like another child, or how does that work so that you don't totally lose out on all this money if God forbid, your child gets a full ride or something?
Yeah, so I'll use your kids as an example.
Yeah.
So you have 3 kids, and I mentioned the contribution really $5,000 to the parents per kid.
Right.
If one of those 3 kids ends up at, say, University of Maryland, hate to tell it to you, but $5,000 is not going to cut it, right?
Right.
So we focus first on kind of those deductions, and then the second part of that is okay, 3 kids. Maybe one of them doesn't go to school at all, right? Maybe one enters the trades and is works as an electrician or joins the elevator union or something like that. And they never go to higher education. You can move it between the 3 kids.
Okay.
So when we're talking about setting the 529s up, the parent generally, it could be the grandparent, but the parent is the essentially custodian of the account, and then you name a beneficiary, and you can change that beneficiary to really anybody in your family tree without penalty. So that would be like your kids and their siblings. It could be grandchildren. It's like nieces and nephews. So it's kind of like with stepchildren, adopted children, those type of things. So it's generally within that family tree. You can move it around. So very rarely do I see somebody with too much money left over in those accounts. I mean, I can really think of one time that's ever happened. And even now, that's been fixed because Congress, I'm gonna say maybe 3 years ago, I forget now. Now allows those 529 funds to be moved to Roths.
Okay.
So if Mikey gets a basketball scholarship, and then what's your daughter's name?
Molly. Let's pick Molly.
Molly's a math whiz, and Molly gets a math scholarship, and everything's paid for. the funds that you and your husband set aside for their 529s can be moved to Roth IRAs for Mikey and Molly with
Nice.
their age. So there's a lot of ways now to really avoid what would be a 10% penalty on money that's not used for education and is not transferred to other kids in the family tree.
Wow,
So
that's
Joe,
great.
what would be the biggest difference between a 529 account and an UTMA, and why would a parent go in either direction?
Good question. So I think the answer is both in a lot of cases. So I have 3 kids myself, and we have both set up.
Okay.
529s ultimately are supposed to be used for educational purposes. There's some exit hatches that we kind of already talked about, but they're really supposed to be used for education.
Okay.
UTMAs, Uniform Trust of Minor Act, we sometimes call them UTMAs or UTMAs, but that's what started that. That's essentially a trust that you don't need a lawyer to set up. It's just the titling on the account. So we open up a UTMA for a minor child, because minor children, you know, Mikey can do a lot of things, but Mikey can't pick stocks. And I don't know if you
Right.
want him doing that, right? So you can open up for a kid, and it grows in that account until the kid is 21 in most states. It's state by state, most states. And then at 21, Mikey now gets access to the account, and he can use it for a car, pay for his first apartment, you know, pay for student loans that he might have had, or really anything he wants at that point. So there's no restrictions on what the use of the funds would be. The downside of it is kind of what I said, is like at 21, it's Mikey's money.
Right.
You know, and I'll pick on my own son, so I won't Mikey, but like my son Max is a wild man. Like I don't know what Max could be like at 21, but I'm not sure how much money I want to just turn over to him at 21. So
Right.
the 529 allows me to kind of exercise some parental control even after the kid is 21 years old.
Now, at that time, when they're of age, could they take that that account and roll it into like a retirement account in their name, or what are their options?
Yeah, it depends on what their situation is at that time.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
oftentimes we'll meet a child that has money in a brokerage account or investment account. And if they haven't earned income, they could contribute to a Roth IRA, which is oftentimes a recommendation that we made.
Mhm.
But if, you know, said 21-year-old is backpacking around Europe and has no earned income, then they can't contribute to a Roth IRA at 21 until they have earned income.
And just real quick, Joe, with that 529, like let's say Mikey goes to school like out of the state of Maryland. The 529 plan is specific to Maryland, but can he still utilize the funds in another state, or what's the rules there?
Good question. So you actually can open the account in any state,
Okay.
but it's generally speaking best to do it in the state you live in. There's
Okay.
some exceptions, like Pennsylvania will give you the tax benefit regardless of where you open the account. So you should seek tax advice from your CPA or qualified tax preparer before you open the account. But generally speaking, you can open in any state. You just might not get the tax benefit. So that's the first. The second is the use of it. Just because it's a Maryland plan doesn't mean they have to go to Towson or Johns Hopkins. They can go to school anywhere in the country, and there's even some international schools that are accepted. So there's kind of a list for qualified education expenses, but you're not restricted to the state where you open the 529. I've met Maryland clients who have had Alaska 529s and they've never been to Alaska. They just had a reason they opened it there. So they're pretty free flowing on how they can be used. But the key point is to make sure you're qualifying for all state and federal benefits that are available.
I
Great.
feel like you've gotten Julie fully prepared now, Joe.
Great. Good stuff.
And you can, last thing is you can open actually before you have the kid. So we've seen people that, hey, we're pregnant, we're expecting. You can open it, you can name yourself or your spouse as the beneficiary. And then once child has Social Security number, date of birth, etc., you can change the beneficiary to the child at a later date.
That's actually amazing. Talk about prior planning, guys.
Yeah,
Right.
usually that's the
Proactive.
first we get that question like the first grandchild. It's
Yeah.
first grandchild, I was excited. When it's like the fourth, fifth, they're like, okay, like, oh, should we set one of these up? They're now 12. Should we get around to this? But we do get that question about opening them up before the child's actually here yet.
Yeah, that's great. Good stuff.
Okay. So everyone have a beautiful day, and we will meet you here next week for the next weekly set.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Robin, thanks, Julie. See ya.
See ya.